with us. I have to say, I'm quite, I don't know how to feel about this. Did you all see Mr. Mike absolutely blow me out of the water with the PowerPoint game on that movie thing? I was like, oh, I've been upstaged. I can't believe that. But it was an excellent lesson, excellent class. It's just so wonderful to be here this morning. Well, this morning we're going to talk about a fascinating section of Scripture in Genesis. But before we do that, who knows what this is? Anyone seen Tangled? Anyone seen Tangled before? Yeah. It's a very good movie based on the famous book, right, about Rapunzel. And in this story, remember Mother Gothel. She's a very bad lady. Remember, she steals Rapunzel away when she's a baby, and she raises her as if she kind of indoctrinates her. You know, I'm your mom. I take care of you. She locks her in a high tower. And what is it all under the guise of? Oh, mother knows best. I'm here to protect you. All her love, all her affection, all these things she shows. Really, it's just a mask, right? Because what does she really want Rapunzel for? Her as a person, to have a daughter, to have a relationship? No, she's after the magic hair, right? And she wants it all to herself, and so she locks her in this tower. And so all this care, affection, it's all a ruse. It's all a disguise for the ugly truth, for the fact that she simply wants this selfish control, because she wants to control the blessing that this hair can give. And that's not a new story. It's a very, very ancient story, and it's very much so like Laban. So we are first introduced to Laban in Genesis chapter 24. And in chapter 24, if you remember, Abraham, he's getting older, and his son is getting older, son Isaac. And he's like, all right, I need to find a spouse for my son. I need to find a wife for my son Isaac, because they need to carry on the promise, right? The covenant that God has made with me, that through my children, through my offspring, all the nations of the world will be blessed. And so Abraham commissions his servant to go and to find a spouse for his son Isaac. Now, this servant, he's very meticulous, he's very prayerful, and then he has this whole thing in his head. He's like, okay, I'm going to go to this well, and then if the lady, whatever ladies come by, if they ask me if I want water, and if she gives me water, and then if she offers to water all the camels and so on, then I'll know she's the one. He says a prayer, and lo and behold, a woman comes and does exactly that. In verse 28, it says, then the young woman, Rebekah, ran and told her mother's household about these things. So Rebekah comes along, and she does all the stuff that the servant had prayed for, and he says, the Lord's answered my prayers. I found the wife for my master's son. I found a wife for Isaac. And so he's very excited. He tells Rebekah all about it. And in verse 29, we are first introduced to this odd character, Laban. It says, Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban. Laban ran out toward the man to the spring. Notice what he notices. As soon as he saw the ring and the bracelet on his sister's arms, remember, Abraham's a very wealthy man, and so he sent a servant with a lot of goods, a lot of jewelry, and the servant puts it all over Rebekah, and Laban, what's the first thing he sees? Oh, my sister's got some bling on. She's got a lot of expensive jewelry. And heard the words of Rebekah, his sister, thus the man spoke to me. He went to the man, and behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. He said, come in, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and a place for the camels. All right, so, okay. Very, very generous language, right? Very hospitable language. But again, notice what he notices first. He notices all the gold. He notices all the jewelry. So what is being communicated to us through this, again, the inspired Hebrew authors, they don't really just kind of spell out, okay, this is the bad guy, by the way, and he did X, Y, Z. It tells us this through narrative, through little distinct moments that we're supposed to pick up on and analyze. So the first thing he sees is this gold, and so we're dubious, we're skeptical about Laban's behavior and his motivations. Look at verse 49. It says, now then, if you are going to show, this is the servant speaking to Laban's household, to Rebekah's household. It says, to show steadfast love and faithfulness to my master, Abraham, tell me, and if not, tell me that I may turn to the right hand or to the left. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the thing has come from the Lord. We cannot speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken. All right, Bethuel is Rebekah's father. All right, now who has the authority in the household?
the father, right? And so Bethuel gives the blessing. All right, thus the Lord has spoken, and Laban agrees with his father. But something odd happens. Look at verse 54. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank, and they spent the night there. When they arose in the morning, he said, send me away to my master. Her brother and her mother, who's her brother? Laban. Her mother said, let the young woman remain with us a while, at least 10 days. After that, she may go. But he said to them, do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. They said, let us call the young woman and ask her. All right, what did the father already say about this? This is from the Lord. Doesn't matter what I think about it. This is clearly the Lord's working. Go. You have my blessing. Go. And then Laban and his mom, but Laban seems to come along. Let her stay here. Let her stay here. Stay here a while. All right, where's her father? Why is Laban doing most of the talking in this? Why the sudden change of plans? Now, if we recall his motivation, do you think it's possible that he could think, oh, if I kind of hold my sister hostage here, maybe the master will go back, or the servant will go back, get more money, bring it back here. Or maybe the servant still had more to give, and so he's kind of holding on to him so he can keep getting. What we're going to see, though, is this is a pattern in Laban's life. He tries to hold on and to make the most advantageous decision. He's going to make the decision, whatever the cost, that benefits him the most, or at least that he thinks will benefit him the most. So let's fast forward a bit. So Rebekah and Isaac, they get married, and they have two children, Jacob and Esau. You remember this, Jacob and Esau, right? Esau, red and hairy. And remember what happens with this birthright? Jacob is kind of this smooth, cool, calm, collected deceiver, smart guy. Esau is a caveman, brute, like macho man. And he comes from the field. He hadn't caught anything, and he's starving to death. And then Jacob just so happens to be cooking some soup. And then what does Esau do? He says, hey, give me some of that soup. What does Jacob say? Give me your birthright, and I'll give you some soup. It's funny. It's not like Jacob was really deceiving here. He was pretty clear, right, in what the trade was. You give me the birthright, I give you some soup. It's pretty clear. There wasn't like word games here. But what is he doing? He's taking advantage of his brother's stupidity. He's taking advantage of his brother's foolishness. And he's more than happy to capitalize on that. I know my brothers were when I was growing up. They were more than happy to capitalize on my foolishness. But what we see is that Jacob is an opportunist. Does that remind you of anyone else? Laban is an opportunist. And then it doesn't end there. So that inheritance, that birthright that Jacob got, that would be the legal right of the firstborn son. So that would be like the inheritance. It had more to do with finances. And so he kind of robbed him of his financial future. Because again, it's not like today. You don't like evenly distribute your inheritance between your children. It's, a lot of your kids don't make it in the ancient world, so you put all your eggs in one basket. You're like, all right, first one's got to make it, and that at least guarantees my lineage continues. But then Jacob doesn't stop there. Well, really, Jacob's mother doesn't stop there. Look at what happens in Genesis chapter 27. It says, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare for me delicious food that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord before I die. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. All right. For a long time, I had the perception that Jacob was like, oh, I want to get this from him too. I'm going to set up this plan. Whose idea is this? His mom's. It's Rebekah's idea that this happened. Now, look at what happens. Verse 11. Jacob says, all right, I'm ready to do it. No, look at what Jacob says. But Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him, and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing. All right, so does it seem like Jacob wants to do this? No, he's like, this is going to end up getting me cursed, Mom. What are you trying to do? But look, his mother said to him, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go bring them to me. Rebekah will keep telling, if you notice in this chapter, she keeps saying to Jacob, obey me, obey me. She keeps repeating that in this chapter. It's very interesting. So he went and took them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared delicious food, such as his father loved. So he acquiesces to his mother's wishes. So we see that Jacob gives in when he's pressured, and he's also an opportunist, And once again, he takes something from Esau. And this would be the prophetic right. In other words, he would be the torch carrier of the covenant between Yahweh and Abraham. Jacob would be the one who these promises and this covenant would be fulfilled through. So he snatched that out of Esau's hand as well. So it was a heavy thing. So he's secured a financial future, and he's secured a prophetic covenantal future with Yahweh. So he's left Esau essentially with nothing. Now look at verse 42 of chapter 27. Rebekah again goes to Jacob, and she's like, hey, turns out my plan, Esau's not too happy about it at all. He comforts himself when he's really sad right now, but what makes him feel better, he's like, oh, I'm going to kill Jacob. Like, that's crazy. That's how he comforted himself. You know, we think of like our favorite song or favorite vacation. He's like, oh, I'm going to kill my brother. It's how he like self-soothes. He's like, and his mom says, all right, you need to get out of here. Go to my brother, Laban. Leave. Now, what's interesting, where they are right now, they are in the promised land right now. In other words, Jacob's now newly acquired birthright. And he is now exiled away from his birthright that he's secured. He's exiled from the promised land. And what we're going to see is this very much parallels Israel and Egypt. It's an exile in a way. So in chapter 28, we have the famous account of Jacob's ladder or Jacob's ramp. Remember, there's angels ascending and descending on it, which is important. It wasn't just an ascension. There was a descension as well. It was a bridge between heaven and earth where they both meet, which Jesus refers to himself as in John chapter 1. So there you go, Clark. There's another one for you next class. And so it's this interesting manifestation of God, and God tells Jacob, hey, I'm going to be with you. You're going into a foreign land. You're going outside the promised land, but still, I will still remain with you, and I'm going to protect you. So very, very interesting stuff. So in chapter 29, it says, then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. For out of that well, flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large. All right, so they didn't have GPS. Right? They don't have MapQuest. They don't have maps. He's just kind of wondering, and then he finds a well. He's like, okay, where there's well, there's bound to be people at some point. So he waits here. He's like, hey, where am I? I remember at one time when I worked at Chick-fil-A, it was right as we opened. It was, I guess, 5:30. It was 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and some guy came in there with bloodshot eyes, and he says, where am I? I went, Kentucky? And he goes, this isn't McDonald's. I said, no, sir, it's Chick-fil-A. So I don't know what kind of night he was having, but he was very confused. So you can see Jacob like, hey, where am I? And these shepherds, they tell him, hey, this is where you are. And then he says, do you know Laban? And they're like, yeah, we know Laban. Is he well? Yeah, he's well. In fact, that's his daughter, Rachel, coming over here. And she was a shepherdess. So look at verse 9. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. Now notice, what did it say about the stone over the well? It's very large. It's a giant rock, essentially. So when Jacob sees this cute girl coming down, he's like, oh, so look at what he does. Jacob came near, rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. All right, single guys. This is a wild pickup maneuver. You try to impress, hey, look at this. Throw this big rock, and then you kiss her, and then you start crying out loud. Like it's absolutely it's odd to us. Now, this wasn't like some like romantic kiss. This was like a common greeting of the time. But you can see he's obviously trying to impress her, and just emotions got the best of him a little bit. He was a little excited. So Jacob meets a girl, Laban's daughter, and suddenly exile doesn't seem so bad, does it? Now he's kind of got this new lease on life. In verse 13, as soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, surely you are my bone and my flesh. And he stayed with him a month. All right, why is Laban so excited to see Jacob? He says, oh, my long-lost nephew. I'm so excited. Or could it be the fact that he remembered, oh, your family's rich. Oh, this might be of benefit to me. So, oh, come on, you're bone. We're family. We're family. Come on in. And eventually, apparently, what we're going to see is during that month, Jacob was working for him for free. So he kind of immediately put him to work as soon as he got there. So look at verse 15. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be? And Jacob says, I have an idea. How about that cute girl over at the well that I tried to impress? He says, hey, that sounds good. Look at verse 19. Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. That's like the cutest verse in the Bible, I think. Like it's in the top 5 for sure of the cutest verses. So here we see the trickster making an honest man of himself, right? He finds love. He finds a good job. He's working hard. But little does he know the deceiver is about to be beat at his own game. Now, was Laban opposed to any of this so far? No, he's like, hey, your family, yeah, of course she should marry you rather than anyone else. Yeah, 100%. Here's 7 years. We'll go by that, and then once it's done, then y'all can get married. Verse 21, then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed. So Laban gathered together all the people at the place and made a feast. What a generous guy. There's a party for the young couple. But in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me? Laban said, it is not so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we'll give you the other also in return for serving me, another 7 years. See how absolutely ridiculous this is? But notice Jacob's kind of encountering a mirror. Remember that old Groucho Marx bit in those old movies with the mirror, they move? Jacob's encountering a mirror here. Because notice, it's something with the firstborn, right? There's a reversal with the firstborn happening right here as well. In the opposite way, it's mirrored. And so you see that Laban had no intention of fulfilling the bargain that he made all those 7 years ago. He had no intention of doing that. What is he trying to do? Make decisions and be an opportunist where he always comes out on top, where he always gets ahead based on the decision. And notice his callousness. He's like, oh, give the week to that one, and then this one, then another 7 years, and I'll give you that one. You see how his daughters are a commodity to him? There's something to bargain over. Now his language is going to flip. Oh, they're family. Oh, these are my daughters. Oh, that one for labor. Oh, this one for labor. He doesn't view his daughters as daughters. They're simply objects for him to get what he wants. Verse 31, we see that Jacob had no intention. He did not want Leah, right? So do you think that's going to cause some marriage problems? Yeah, there's going to be. In fact, we read about this whole, I call it the birth wars that happens between Rachel and Leah. And each time they give birth, they're like, the Lord gave me victory. Then the next one gives birth, and God gave me victory to prevail over my sister. And there's this animosity, there's this bitter rivalry. And who set the tone for that rivalry and that competition? Who really caused that? It was Laban's selfish deception. He's corroding his own family. He's passing down his brokenness to an entirely new generation. And this is just a small section. It goes on. It gets even more messed up, especially the scene with the mandrakes, if you want to read it. It's very, very weird. It's an entirely warped and distorted family drama that takes place all because of Laban's selfish decision, because he wanted to come out on top, no matter what. Look at chapter 30, verse 25. As soon as Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Jacob's had enough. He said, all right, I got all these kids, I got my wives. Send me away that I may go to my own home and country so I can inherit the promise, so I can be a bearer of the covenant. Send me home. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know the service that I have given you. But Laban said to him, if I have found favor in your sight, yeah, right. How would he have found favor? I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. You see how I was doing witchcraft the other night? I figured out that God's blessing you. Do you see? Laban's a mess. He uses religious language. He uses familial language. But is any of that deep down rooted in his heart? No, it's all surface level. It's all sprinkles on top of garbage. And that's what Laban is. Look at verse 28. Name your wages and I will give it. He said, what shall I give you? And Jacob says, don't give me anything, just give me a portion of the sheep. Now that was very common. There's these things called the Nuzi tablets. And they actually have contracts between shepherds and like sub-shepherds. And they would work out a deal where if they're speckled, spotted, you get that. And so Laban agrees. He's like, okay, yeah, speckled, spotted, black ones, you get those ones. And I get the solid color ones. And then you know what Laban did? He took all the speckled spotted out of Jacob's herd, and then he gave it to his sons. So that way, he was trying to leave Jacob with nothing. He's trying to get him to labor for another contract, essentially, for nothing. He's trying to take advantage of him. Not only that, it says he set a distance of 3 days' journey. So that way, their flocks won't intermingle at all. He's making sure they're far between, so that way Jacob leaves destitute. He's not getting the better of him, but God protects him. But notice how Laban uses religious language. He speaks favorably of Jacob and sounds eager to grant his request. Yeah, that sounds good, Jacob. Let's totally do that. But in reality, he's actively trying to take advantage of Jacob again. Look at chapter 31, verse 1. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has gained all his wealth. Now, is that true? Like, in a way. But no, he didn't take it from it. Laban had constantly taken stuff from Jacob, changed the contract. Jacob acted with integrity, like for once in his life. Like throughout it, he served with integrity throughout his servitude to Laban. And it was God who had done this. And in fact, Jacob acknowledges that. He says, God has been with me. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Man, if that's what you call favor, I'd hate to see what he called like hatred or something. Look at verse 3. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. That's the same promise that God made to him back at Bethel, back where that rock that he anointed. So Jacob recounts to his wives all the ways Laban had done him wrong and how God had told him to come back home. And so how do you think these sisters are going to react who can't agree on anything, who have been in a bitter competition their whole marriage to Jacob? Look at what they say. Then Rachel and Leah answered, and he said to him, is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All of the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah, kind of situation here. They actually speak with unity on this because they realize he messed us up. He really made a mess of things, and we're sitting in the ashes. So yes, listen to God. Verse 22, when it was told Laban, so Jacob kind of sneaks away. He leaves. Now, he didn't renege on his contract. It says that Laban was out fleecing, the sheep and everything. That was the end of the contractual year. So he served his tenure with Laban. But he went away by stealth. Verse 23, Laban hears about it. He took his kinsmen with him, and he pursued him for 7 days. That literal idea there of pursued is persecuted. So it's not just like, hey, where are you going, guys? No, this is a hot pursuit. This is, in fact, like Pharaoh when he changes his mind and goes after the Israelites when they finally leave Egypt. That's the same picture going on here. And he followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban, to the Aramean, in a dream by night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. All right, the fact that God had to say that, what do you think Laban's intentions were with this? He gathered all his men together. Most likely that means they were armed. They were armed, they had their swords, and they were ready to kill and take back all the loot and take back his daughters, take everything back. So he got a bunch of free labor and his wealth expounded, and he gets his stuff back, and Jacob's out of the way. Look at verse 26. So he catches up to him, and Laban said to Jacob, what have you done that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Oh, poor Laban. Why would you do this to me, Jacob? Why did you flee secretly and trick me and not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? I wanted to throw you a going away party. And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. All right, now what has he said about the daughters? What did the daughters say about their father? He counts us as foreigners. Yet now all of a sudden they're his precious daughters, and he can't bear to not say goodbye. Look at verse 29. It is in my power to do you harm. Oh, tambourine and lyre, I could kill you. Essentially, that's what's going on here. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. He's pushing it. He's kind of getting as close to the line as he can. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. So this is literally laid out a legal case. Jacob finally, he's had enough. He says, Jacob said to Laban, what is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. By the way, Rachel stole the household god, that's the household idol. So don't have gods that can be stolen, by the way. Life tip, pro tip for you. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I've been with you. Your ewes, your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. That was also one of the things. So if you brought back the carcass of a torn animal, it shows you that you did your due diligence, right? Because what do wild animals do when they kill and get food? They take it with them. They eat all of it. But if you bring back part of the carcass, it means I fought them off. I did what I could. And so that wasn't on you to replace that. But Jacob took the hit. Jacob took the loss. He acted with integrity. He says, there I was by day. The heat consumed me. The cold by night. My sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I've been in your house. And then he continues, verse 42. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. That is the most words that Jacob has had, like in the entire Jacob story, up to this point. He's always been kind of quiet. He's always acquiesced to other people. He'll be like, hey, what was that for? And then he'll kind of go back into his routine. But here he finally he finds his spine. He finds his confidence. He finds his courage. And it's not just because what he's done. He's like, look, I worked hard. I did what I knew to be right. And if God was not on my side, I couldn't have done any of it. And I would have been leaving empty-handed. You see this maturation on Jacob's part. It's very interesting. Verse 43. So remember, Laban's always been the calculated, very articulate. Oh, come you, O blessed of the Lord. Oh, my daughters. He's very he's an orator. He's a very good speaker. But notice once he's confronted with the ugliness of how he's acted, notice the change in tone. The daughters are my daughters. The children are my children. The flocks are my flocks. And all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters or for their children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. Notice the shift? Not an eloquent public speaker anymore. Sounds like a vicious animal. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine, it's all mine. Because he's confronted with the truth of his behavior. Laban's need to always get ahead and to always be in control caused him to lose absolutely everything. He is now essentially penniless, he's familyless, and literally godless because his idol got stolen away. He's left with nothing. Yet he always made the decision that was the smart decision, right? He always made decisions that would make sure he ended up on top. And what happened? He lost everything. So there's 3 applications for us. 1, all is not gold that glitters. And that's so important. There's so many opportunities or decisions we make in life that look on the surface like really good ideas. That new job opportunity, that new idea that you've been thinking about, whatever it is, that just seems like such a good idea. There's a way that looks right into a man, but its end is what? Destruction. Remember Lot made a similar decision? He looked and it's like, behold, that looks like the garden of God. And he pitches his tent towards Sodom and Gomorrah. How did that turn? That was the advantageous. That was the smart. That was the very economical decision. But could it be that money and personal gain aren't the most important things that we should base our decisions off of? James 3:14 says, but if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, if you're only making decisions where you benefit, either emotionally, relationally, economically, no matter what it is, if it's only focused on the self, don't boast and be false to the truth. It's not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder in every vile practice. where you see divisions and disruptions in the home, in the church, guess what? There is demonic, unspiritual wisdom at play. And that's just where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's selfish ambition, there is strife and contention. 2, control will never triumph over covenant. That was Laban's MO, right? It was control, control, control. Laban tried to keep control through guilt. Remember, he says, you drove away my daughters like captives of the sword. He tries to get his way through manipulation. Oh, I would throw a party for you. I would have thrown a party for you. And through power. He says, it's in my power to do you harm. Parents, spouses, and leaders in the church must be hyper aware of any signs of this Laban-like pattern in our leadership and in our influence. Beware of constantly reminding those under you of your power over them, constantly making yourself the victim. Oh, how could you do this to me? Oh, poor me. Or using shame and guilt to consistently get your way. I think all of us have a little bit of Laban in us. I think it's very easy to slip into that. I think this is part of the reason why this narrative is in here and inspired Scripture for us to learn from. There's negative examples in Scripture as well that we can be, oh, don't be like that. Don't be like Laban. Look at Romans 16:17. Paul says, I appeal to you, brothers, to watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles. People who are always causing problems, who are trying to pit people against people. He says, contrary to the doctrine that you have been taught, avoid them. For such persons do not serve our Lord Christ, but what? Their own appetites. What's that? Their way. Always making sure that their way is the way that everyone else acts according to. And by smooth talk, in flattery, they deceive the hearts of the naive. That's so true. It's rarely, there's not like someone just bursts in, hey, I'm the division guy. I'm here to create obstacles. That never happens. It's like, oh, what a great guy. That's how it comes across. But we need to be discerning as Christians, wise as serpents, harmless as doves, and avoid such a one as that. Look at point 3, suffering can lead us to strength. And if you leave with nothing else, I think this is one of the most impactful for us. Jacob seemed to struggle to find his voice. Right? He didn't want to do what his mom said, but he did it anyway. He was mad about Laban, but he acquiesces again. Okay, I'll serve another 7 years. Instead of saying, no, absolutely not. This was the agreement that you pay up, right? You give me Rachel. He doesn't do that. He kind of keeps going along with it. In other words, he kept letting life happen to him. He let life happen to him until he finally decided to step into the role that God had assigned him. People will avoid a hard conversation with their spouse until it all blows up years later. You let that resentment build, you let that annoyance build until it's too late or something drastic happens. We attempt to keep the peace, right? Women are especially, it seems like they have that heart where they always want to keep the peace. But sometimes you can go keeping the peace without ever addressing the underlying behaviors that are causing the division and the problem. Sometimes we stay at miserable at a job until one day you've had enough and you snap. We choose to prioritize our parents' expectations instead of clinging to the one God gave us as our spouse. Now, I'll ask you, is working a full-time job difficult? Is it hard? Yeah. Is being broke hard? Yes, you betcha. In many ways, we must stop letting life happen to us and choose our hard. Right? Jacob went into exile, essentially, into the wilderness because he was scared of his brother because he listened to his mom. Now he's going to voluntarily enter the wilderness again to confront Esau of his own volition. Do you see? Both ended up through this suffering, through this stage of wilderness. But one was avoidance and one was directly facing the problem at hand and making it right. And we need to make sure we stop serving Laban and start serving God. We have to fear the Lord. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. You need those things. You need power, but power is no good if it doesn't have love. And love is no good if it doesn't have self-control. And as Paul says, rather speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. Many of us need to find our voice and our confidence in the Lord, in God, and make sure that he is the priority and we make all our decisions based on him, not on everything that glitters, right? Not the things that will be advantageous to us, but in a way that honors God and honors who he has called us to be. Finally, last point, Philippians 2:12, therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Can't rely on mom, can't rely on dad, can't rely on the preacher. You have to stand before the infinite, before God, the creator of all things, and give an account. And you need to work out that faith between you and your creator. And if you would like to stop serving the world, stop serving Laban, and serve the Lord and find the only true path to peace, we ask that you come forward, be baptized for the remission of sins as we stand and sing. Don't you want to go that way?
Don't you want to go to that